Sometimes a single phone call can change everything. You're going about your day, minding your own business, when the phone rings, and on the other end is your child's school. They tell you there's been an incident. They say your child has done something wrong, and as a parent, your heart sinks. But what happens when you arrive at the school, ready to discipline your child, only to find out that the story you were told is not the whole truth? What if the real story is much darker, and your child is the one who needs defending? A mother, a busy nurse at a bustling hospital, got just such a call. It was a normal day until a frantic administrator insisted she drop everything to come to the school immediately. The mother was told her teenage daughter had hit a classmate, leaving him with a bloody nose. But when she finally arrived, she quickly realized the situation was far more complex and disturbing than anyone had let on. She saw her daughter, small and scared, surrounded by a panel of school officials, all looking at her with disapproval. The boy, a tall and sturdy figure, sat with his own parents, a tissue held to his still bleeding nose. The room was tense, full of judgment. But this mother, a woman who dealt with life's hardest realities every single day, was not one to be intimidated. She was about to give a response so brilliant, so powerful, that it would not only silence the room but also set a new precedent for how the school handled situations like this forever. What she did next became an unforgettable lesson in justice, self-defense, and the unwavering love of a mother. The initial call had been a nightmare. The school administrator was impatient, borderline hostile, and completely unsympathetic to the fact that the mother was an emergency room nurse in the middle of a chaotic shift. Your daughter has struck another pupil. We've been trying to call you for 45 minutes. It really is very serious. The administrator's tone was heavy with accusation, a tone that implied the mother was not only negligent, but also responsible for her daughter's supposed misdeed. Reluctantly, the mother left her post, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. She imagined her daughter as a bully, a child who had let her temper get the best of her, and she felt a mix of disappointment and dread. She drove to the school, mentally preparing a lecture for her child about controlling her anger and the importance of peaceful conflict resolution. But as she walked into the principal's office, all her preconceived notions were shattered. The scene was a tableau of accusation. Her 15-year-old daughter, a slight girl weighing just 84 pounds, was seated opposite a towering 160-pound boy who looked a foot taller than her. The boy's face was indeed red, and a wad of tissue was pressed to his nose, a vivid testament to the altercation. Surrounding them were the principal, the school counselor, the daughter's teacher, and the boy's parents, who stared at the mother with a mixture of anger and self-righteousness. The principal, a man whose stern face seemed permanently fixed in a scowl, was the first to speak. "Mrs. Last Name, how kind of you to finally join us," he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The mother, still reeling from her stressful shift and the sight of her daughter's fearful face, had a brilliant comeback ready. "I've spent the last hour administering over 40 stitches to a 7-year-old who was beaten by his mother with a metal ladle, and then had to deal with the police regarding the matter. Sorry for the inconvenience." Her words hung in the air, a stark and brutal reminder of the real-world problems she dealt with every day. The principal's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of stunned silence. The rest of the room followed suit. Now that the air had been cleared, the principal began to lay out the school's version of events. The boy had been playfully snapping the daughter's bra strap. He'd done it repeatedly, despite her pleas for him to stop. Finally, he had snapped it so hard that it came undone. At that point, the daughter had turned and, in a moment of pure frustration and anger, punched him twice in the face. The principal's narrative painted a picture of a girl who had overreacted, a girl who had resorted to violence without cause. The boy was merely a victim of her uncontrollable temper. The mother, however, saw the situation in a completely different light. The school's story was full of holes. Why was the boy, a student a foot taller and twice the weight of her daughter, allowed to touch her repeatedly? Why? Had no one intervened? And why was her daughter, the one who had been physically and verbally harassed, being blamed? She looked around the room, her eyes landing on each person. In turn, the principal, the teacher, the counselor, the boy's parents. The collective judgment in their eyes was palpable. They saw a violent child and a neglectful mother. They did not see the truth. "So you're telling me," the mother began, her voice calm and even, "that this boy, a foot taller than my daughter, repeatedly touched her against her will until her bra strap came undone, and you're blaming her for his bloody nose?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "And you want to know if I'm going to press charges against him for sexually assaulting my daughter and against the school for allowing him to do it?" The room erupted. The boy's mother began to cry, a performative display of emotion that felt more like a manipulation tactic than genuine sadness. The teacher, a man who had apparently witnessed the entire ordeal without doing anything, sputtered, I don't think it was that serious. The counselor, a woman whose job it was to support students, added, let's not overreact. The principal, ever the pragmatist, tried to regain control of the conversation by saying, I think you're missing the point. But the mother was not missing the point. She was a woman who saw the world in black and white, right and wrong, and in this situation there was nothing gray about it. She ignored their protests and turned to her daughter. Tell me what happened, honey. All of it. Her daughter, who had been silent up to this point, finally spoke. He kept pinging my bra. I asked him to stop, but he didn't, so I told Mr. Teacher's name. He told me to ignore it. Boy's name, did it again, and undid my bra, so I hit him. Then he stopped. The mother's rage, which had been simmering just beneath the surface, finally boiled over. She turned her attention to the teacher, her eyes blazing with fury. You let him do this? Why didn't you stop him? She took a step closer to him, her voice low and dangerous. Come over here and let me touch the front of your trousers. The teacher recoiled in shock, his face paling. What? No? Does that seem inappropriate to you? She challenged. Why don't you go and pull on Mrs. Counselor's name's bra right now? See how fun it is for her. Or on that boy's mom's bra. Or mine. You think just because they're kids it's fun? You think it's just a little bit of horseplay? Her words were a torrent, a relentless wave of logic and righteous indignation. The teacher, the counselor, and the boy's mother all looked away, unable to meet her gaze. They had been called out, their hypocrisy laid bare for all to see. The principal, in a final desperate attempt to save face, tried to shift the blame back onto the daughter. Your daughter still beat another child, he insisted. No, the mother corrected him, her voice a steel-edged blade. She defended herself against a sexual attack. Her words were a definitive statement, a final, unyielding declaration of the truth. At that moment, the boy's parents seemed to finally grasp the gravity of their son's actions. The teacher's bravado disappeared, replaced by a look of shame. The counselor, who had been so quick to dismiss the incident, now looked mortified. He's a foot taller than her and twice as heavy, the mother continued, her voice gaining momentum. How many times should she have let him touch her? If the person who was supposed to help and protect her in a classroom couldn't be bothered, what should she have done? He pulled her bra so hard it came undone. Her words were a powerful defense of her daughter's actions, a condemnation of the school's inaction, and a searing indictment of a culture that often blames victims for defending themselves. Having made her point, the mother stood up, took her daughter's hand, and declared that they were leaving. She told the principal that she would be reporting the incident to the school board, making it clear that she would not let this matter go. Then she turned to the boy, her eyes cold and hard. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but it was a whisper that everyone in the room could hear. And if you ever touch my daughter again, I will have you arrested for sexual assault. Do you understand me? The boy, who had been so defiant just moments before, nodded, his face pale with fear. He understood. The mother and daughter walked out of the office, leaving a room full of stunned, silent people in their wake. They had come in as the accused, but they were leaving as the victors.